I'm Bob Brill. He's Erik Kramer. Welcome to Kramer and Brill Fantasy Football Podcast, and now a video cast as well. You can hear the podcast wherever you get the podcast, and also you can see the video cast on YouTube by going to my Bob Brill YouTube channel or by finding the links for all of this at kramerandbrill.com. That's the easiest way. Well, week one was exciting, dude. We saw the new young quarterbacks play a role. The defenses dominate. An exciting, wild Monday night game. The winners this week were Kyler Murray, 289, 4 touchdown passes. Patrick Mahomes, 337, had 3 scores. Russell Wilson, 254, 4 touchdowns. Matt Stafford, great debut, 3 scores, 321. And the game you called, Tom Brady, 5 touchdown passes, 379, despite 2 picks versus Dak Prescott, who I said would have a great game. He had 403 yards and 3 scores. So Aaron Rodgers just stunk it up. I think we can probably leave it at that.
Well, let's not forget about Jameis Winston. The 5 touchdowns.
Well, we're going to talk about him.
Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, I said Brady would start off slow. You said no, he would open on a roll. And you were right. I was wrong.
It happens to the best of us, either. But I, what captured me coming into the season was Brady and Tampa Bay were one of the, well, I don't know how many teams, but there weren't many that played many of their starters or were going to be starters, but they did. And they looked good doing it. So I figured, hey, Brady didn't have last year to prepare and still looked good, especially midway on. And so I figured, hey, he'll just pick up where he left off, and he did.
Well, only 4 running backs gained 100 yards, led by Joe Mixon, had 127. David Montgomery had 108. He looks like he's finally the real deal. Melvin Gordon, 101. No one saw that coming. And no one saw Damian Harris in New England rushing for 100 yards. Nick Chubb led all touchdown makers with 2, believe it or not. On the receiving side, big day for tight ends. I know you love this guy. He's on my team. I love him. TJ Hawkinson, 8 catches, 97 yards, plus a touch. Wideouts that you called it on Tyreek Hill, 11 for 197 and a touch. Amari Cooper, 13 for 139 and 2 scores. Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, and Tyler Lockett all had solid games.
Yeah, the other guy, too, that I would mention, well, I guess we'll get to that in a minute, it's Darren Waller. I mean, I don't know that anybody was more targeted than him last night on Monday night.
Yeah, it was just a wild week. I mean, I really liked what we saw this opening week. I think it showed that the NFL is really, really back at this point. Now the one game we're going to highlight coming off last week features a team you took me to task on last week. So let's bring in Las Vegas sports reporter Brian Selman, who covers the Raiders. And we asked Ray Fittipaldi in Pittsburgh to join us, but he said he really wanted to be here. And he asked, can I come back on later? And because at the time we're recording this, it's Mike Tomlin's presser. So, we're going to have to take a back seat to Mike Tomlin, which I don't mind. That's okay. So Brian, welcome to the show again.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, love it, man. Hey, before we get to the Raiders Steelers, you had an exciting game with the Ravens last night. Wow. So I got to ask you this. I'm sitting there looking at this and I'm saying, did John Gruden plan the 5-yard penalty at the end of the game? I got to ask you that.
Did he? I think he planned that. He planned the ball off the helmet. He planned the offensive penalty down on the 1-yard line by his top draft pick. When they're trying to win the game. I mean, that game was absolutely bananas. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, just that, the Ravens, as bad as all of their injuries were, and that indicated they were going to maybe struggle this first game offensively, they did not. And the wild card there for me is always going to be Lamar Jackson. And I think the guys were talking about after the game, the announcers, of just how impressive he now looks, probably better than ever from inside the pocket.
No, absolutely. I mean, he threw the ball very well. I literally just looked at the box score because right after the game, we're doing our live shots, we're trying to go down to the press conference and everything else. And I'm thinking to myself after watching it, man, he probably ran for 150 yards. And he only ran for I think 86 yards, which is crazy. It seemed like he was all over the place. They couldn't contain him. He threw the ball beautifully. That pass that he threw, the setup, which should have been the game-winning touchdown, that over the shoulder. I mean, that was a beautiful – you as a quarterback obviously looked at that. That was a beautiful, beautiful ball, the touch that he put on that thing. He has definitely graduated to an actual quarterback. that people want to say in the pocket and everything else. He played a magnificent game. That was a fantastic game. The atmosphere was bananas. You could not beat what happened inside of Allegiant Stadium last night. It was so Las Vegas. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, there you go. Entertainment capital of the world, they said, right?
Sports and entertainment capital. I keep saying this on the air. The sports and entertainment capital of the world, baby.
Hey, it's turned into a real city. It's not just a resort stop.
Right.
A real city. It has turned into a real city. We have real neighborhoods. I live in a real house. I don't go down to the Strip unless I'm going to, go down to T-Mobile Arena, or maybe me and the wife are going to go eat or something. No, it was really, really. I lived in Boston. Like, I've covered, teams in real cities, and Las Vegas is definitely a real city.
Well, I had to go there a couple of months ago, and it struck me because my cousin, I had to go up on a family matter, and my cousin lives in East Las Vegas. And it was like, okay, I'm following my GPS to get to his house, and I'm driving, and I'm driving, and I'm driving. I'm still not hitting desert yet, right? And like I'm thinking it used to be. And it's like neighborhood after neighborhood. And even when I got to his place, it was out near Sam's Club, which is still, there's a lot more left to go. It's like you're almost to Henderson or something. So no, I get it, man. I get it. So, Brian, Erik tells me last week Najee Harris and Ben Roethlisberger would not have good games against Buffalo. And against his wishes, I started those guys on my fantasy team. And he was right, and I was wrong. So, but this week, I think they turn it around against the Raiders. You tell me.
Well, Najee Harris, I mean, he looked like he thought he was still at Alabama, that he can dance around the line and wait forever, and the guys aren't going to come tackle him, and he can just go anywhere. You, like myself, I grew up a Steelers fan, so I was watching that game, and I like to root against the Buffalo Bills. So I thought he would do a lot. I hope that he would do a lot better. He did not. Against the Raiders, hey, Max Crosby is a guy to look out for. He is a guy to look out for. He was all over Lamar Jackson all night, in the backfield all night long. He's a young guy. I think that the Raiders rushing defense was pretty good, but Gerald McCoy got hurt yesterday. Cleve Farrell, who was a first-round pick a couple of years ago, he was a healthy scratch. So it's possible that the defensive line might not be as good as they hoped they would be. But that is supposed to be more of a strength of the team. And after looking at the numbers, like I said, Lamar Jackson is Ben Roethlisberger is not Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? He's not Lamar Jackson. I think that Ben is going to have a hard time standing back in the pocket. Unique Ngakoue, if he ends up playing, as a Steelers fan, that he played well for the Ravens. Him on one side, Max Crosby on the other side, Roethlisberger is not going to have a lot of time back there at all.
Yeah, and what I was telling Bob earlier is that what plagued the Steelers last year is the same thing this year. I mean, even though they got rid of some of their offensive linemen, the ones they got, they're still unproven. You don't look at the Steelers offensive line and go, oh, well, here's a team that can run the ball for 150 a game. No. And they don't have the protection like you were just mentioning. I don't think Roethlisberger's going to be sitting back there picking the defense apart because they don't really have that type of passing game either. I just think that Najee Harris, like you'd mentioned, and like a lot of people coming into the season when they drafted him, were saying, hey, he's not going to be running behind the equivalent of Alabama's offensive line. It'd be nice if he did. He's still going to be a great player. But this year, it's going to be, I think, it's going to be hit or miss with him. And they have to play a very good defense last week with the Buffalo Bills.
No, I agree. And think about this. The Raiders are going to be coming off of, even though they're traveling back east and everything else, they're coming off of a huge high. Like, like I know, that's one of those games that you can kind of build on. You know what I mean? To me, there's such thing as Big Mo. You got that big momentum. They can build off of that. If they lose that game, that's a game that can maybe ruin your season, even though it's the first game of the season. So, but the Steelers too are coming off a very good win, something they can build on as well. But like you said, the Steelers offensive line is not very good. The Raiders defensive line played very well. They're not going to be chasing around Lamar Jackson. Just think about that. You don't have to worry about chasing around Lamar Jackson. You're chasing around a statue back there for the most part. He's a big guy, but whatever. I think Ben Roethlisberger gets sacked 5 times in this game coming up.
Ooh.
And yeah, and
Someone
Najee
just perked up.
not rushing against. He's not rushing against Southern Alabama.
Well, the interesting thing about this is it's all coming down to the defense for Pittsburgh, and that means that Carr and his cast of characters is going to have that tough time when it comes to that part of the game.
Yeah. How about this though? Who is going to guard Darren Waller? Goodness gracious, Darren Waller.
Let's just say at least 2.
Yeah,
from now on.
At least. You have a wild guess of how many attempts that Darren Waller had? How many
targets? How
many targets did Darren Waller have in the game last night? Let's see.
I'm
looking at it right now. Darren Waller had
19
targets.
Wow.
19 targets. I guarantee he probably had the most targets of any receiver in all the NFL last.
Wow.
Some teams probably didn't throw 19 times yesterday or Sunday.
Man,
that's what I mean. Who are you going to make? He's like what, 6'7"? He's fast.
He's like 6'6". But he runs like a gazelle.
Right. All right. So you're going to match him up on a safety, some sort of hybrid linebacker, or your third best corner? No. I mean, that's going to be a mismatch all day, every day. It doesn't matter if it's.
Derek is looking for him. Where is Darren Waller?
I mean, he had quarterback points in fantasy last night. He was right around 26 points, and that's usually what a quarterback's going to get.
Yes,
it's just amazing. I mean, 19 targets is just crazy. Well,
that's absurd, and he probably had him almost through 3 quarters. You know what I mean? Like, oh my goodness, every play is like, oh, Waller, there's Waller, and he had like probably 3 balls that he probably could have caught that were really close to one ball he tried to one hand instead of turning his body to catch. Woo! He is a problem. He's a problem.
I'll tell you how my week went. After one game, I'm in last place. In our league, my wife is in first place.
Last place at the one game.
Probably as it is with most leagues, Bob.
Nobody scored more points than my wife, and everybody scored more points than me. So there you go.
Well, I was going to mention Brian too. I was going to say, Brian, the guy who with the Raiders, it doesn't really ever get talked about, at least not in terms of being, top shelf, is Derek Carr. And yet here he got off to a great start, made great decisions all game long. What did he throw for almost 400 yards or over 400?
Over 400 yards, like 420.
Yeah. And so the guy didn't make any bad decisions. The one throw I think you were mentioning about Darren Waller, he could have got out in front of him a little bit. But then Darren Waller's also a type of athletic tight end that probably could have turned and made that catch. But, whatever. But there's a good combination right there for quite a while.
Oh, you know what? I have been screaming. I wish people would listen to you. You play the position. You know what the heck is going on. But I have been screaming to Raider Nation, to just anyone who would listen. The problem with the Raiders is not Derek Carr. It has nothing to do with Derek Carr. If Derek Carr can't go out and play defense and and make the defense a top 15 defense, then stop complaining about what he's doing. He threw for over 4,000 yards. He's a top 10 quarterback. I don't care what metric you're using. He's not the problem. And he played extremely well last night, threw for over 400 yards, like you said. Like, stop it. I mean, that pass down by the end zone, maybe a little bit too much mustard on it to Willie Snead that went through his hands. But still, Derek Carr makes great decisions. As you said, he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. His only problem last year is dropping the ball, not securing it enough in the pocket. But other than that, he is a good quarterback.
I'll just say one more thing, then Bob, you can move on. But the addition, I think, of Denzel Perryman as a linebacker, I mean, he was all over the place and making statement tackles left and right. And Guakwe played great. He didn't have any sacks, but he was pressuring and pushing the pocket back a bunch. And so I think you're right. Defensively, that's the story right now for the Raiders, is they didn't have that defense last year.
I can think of 3 games right off the top of my head that the Raiders should have won if their defense was anything. They should have swept Kansas City at home. They had them down, with like a minute something left, and let them go right down the field. Guys not doing their assignment and doing their job. So if their defense is a top 15 defense, they go from 8-8. They win 3 more games, and then they have the fans.
Thank you for joining us this weekend. We have to move on. I'm not going to wish your team good luck against the Steelers. Any final thoughts from you?
My final thoughts would be this. Ben Roethlisberger, please stand in the pocket and introduce yourself to Max Crosby. And hey, just go on and the steel curtain. Please continue to think that Darren Waller is just some guy that used to play for the Ravens that wasn't very good. And we'll have a good time.
You got it. Okay, dude. Thanks much. Thanks again for joining us. We'll talk to you later in the season.
All right, Bob and Erik, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you very much.
You got it.
You bet. Thanks, Brian.
All right.
Okay, let's take a look at this week's games. New York Giants at Washington Football Club. I like Gibson here. Strong play with Fitzpatrick out 6 to 8 weeks with an injury. That means Taylor Heineke gets the start. We sit him. I'm not sold on Barkley this week either, so I do like Daniel Jones.
I would, in talking about Gibson, I haven't looked at their schedule yet, but he looks to me like coming off of last year, he's a strong start every week. And, they're not playing the Pittsburgh Steelers defense this week, they're playing Giants, who gave up a big day last week to a couple big days, one to Teddy Bridgewater and the other one to Melvin Gordon. And so, yeah, I like, in fact, Tyler Heineke, if I didn't have a better matchup, he's someone I would consider. If I had him,
Really?
if I didn't have him, I'd try to go get him. And if I do have him, if I don't have a better matchup this week somewhere else, I think I'd start him because off no practice last week, he had a solid day. Even though they didn't throw the ball all over the field, he made plays himself. He had a number of plays where, because he's such a good athlete, like a point guard, if he threatens the line of scrimmage like he's going to run, the defense has to react to it. And he got a couple of big plays dumping the ball off by drawing the defense in first. So I think he's accurate. He's athletic. I think he's resourceful. And coming off of like not just this past game, but what he did in the playoffs against going toe-to-toe with Tom Brady last year, I like Heineke.
Denver, Jacksonville, Robinson and Lawrence, to me, they're no-shows this week. I like everyone on Denver, though.
I think Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, he proved to me last week and what he did last year, really the last several years he's played, is that he's not, I think they made mention of it in the game last week. He's not just a game manager, right? This guy, he's athletic. He made a lot of athletic plays where he bought time in the pocket or even outside the pocket. And I really, with this cast around him, athletically and, just skill players with Denver, I think he's primed to have a big season this year.
That's San Francisco at the Eagles. Now, I'm sold on Jimmy G this week. I wasn't last week, but this week I am. But with San Francisco D, I'm not sold on Jalen Hurts. I do like Miles Sanders. On the Niners, I also like Deebo Samuel, of course. Kittle, no question there. No first-line healthy running backs. I kind of like Elijah Mitchell, at least for a flex. And keep an eye on Trey Sermon's status.
Well, prior to last week or this preseason, I don't think I would have been sold on Jalen Hurts either. But what he showed me last game, again, it was the Falcons' defense. It wasn't San Francisco's. But he's accurate. He's athletic and accurate. And he's an excellent leader. If I had a better option, I'd probably sit him because it is the 49ers defense, and they are pretty good, really good, especially up front. And, I think, but Miles Sanders also showed me a lot last week. So San Francisco is one of those defenses that I'd be leery, at least at first, but I'd also not downplay what the Eagles are and what kind of nobody, including me, thought they'd be this year so far. And that is a very efficient offense. It's a new offensive coach, new coaching staff. And so far, it looks pretty good.
We got Buffalo at Miami. I do like the Bills to bounce back after a loss to the Steelers. So I really love Josh Allen here. Same with Diggs, Singletary, Sanders, Gabriel Davis. I like Miami. Jalen Waddle is who I like there. But the rest, I think Miami's very pedestrian this week.
Well, I love, though, the way that Brian Flores, the head coach of the Dolphins, has them playing, because they're very offensively, they're very efficient. They make good decisions. Tua is good with the ball, accurate. Probably doesn't make the fantasy numbers that you'd be looking for in terms of not only just him, but the entire offensive skill set as well, or skill players. But who's going to win this game? I think Miami has every bit the chance to beat Buffalo that Pittsburgh did. They've got that kind of defense. And Buffalo right now, they're on the road. They're going to Miami. They're coming off a decisive loss where offensively was, as good as they are defensively, they're supposed to be that good offensively too, but then fell flat. And Pittsburgh's defense, give them credit. They're very good, really good. So is Miami. So who's going to win this game? I think it's a toss-up, but I think I think you're right. I think Josh Allen and that offensive crew is going to come back this week. Whether they're going to explode to come back, I don't know, but I would give Buffalo the edge in winning this game.
New England at the Jets, the battle of two of the top young quarterbacks. Now, I see Mac Jones outperforming his rival in this one. I don't see Damian Harris pounding out 100 yards. I really like Aguilar. I think he and Mac Jones have found something very early on. And, of course, I like Jonnu Smith as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Mac Jones. Loved him coming out of the preseason. Love what he did all that preseason and the time and the reps he got in the preseason. But he's carried that over. And even though they didn't win last week, I too like them, especially against the Jets, who are a young team themselves. Got a young quarterback also, and I think again I like I said, I don't think Damian Harris is going to torch it up again this week. But I like Aguilar. I like their tight ends in New England, and the Jets. I think we're going to have to wait and see on. They certainly have talent. Love their quarterback. Love Corey Davis, the receiver, but they're going to take a little time. I think the second half of the season is kind of when the Jets are going to build up to the point when you can start counting on them offensively.
Bengals at Bears. Yeah, I got to love Montgomery. I've loved Montgomery from the beginning. And you got to love Mixon here, too. He led all rushers in yards last week. Andy Dalton, I think, is serviceable. And I'm going with Joe Burrow again. And again, I'm loving T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase just looked awesome last week.
Yeah, and, there's really, like you said, I think everybody has this picture of Andy Dalton just being, okay, why is he in there? And he's serviceable. He's not going to get you great numbers, which means likely neither are the receivers there. But Montgomery, again, finished off last year, the second half of the season. Just he's like the way he runs the ball, he looks to finish off every single run, and he does very effectively. And he's become something of a weapon in the passing game as well. So I think really David Montgomery right now for the Bears is the one guy I think you can count on every week to show up and play strong. Again, Cincinnati's defense is not as good as some of the others in this league. But like you, I think Joe Burrow picked up right where he left off, as did Herbert with the Chargers. And now they've got another weapon in Jamar Chase. So I like them top to bottom. Even though I think the Bears, I think defensively they'll get back on track, and I think the Bears will win this game. I think it's one of the two out of the first four games they will win. And so I'm looking for the Bears to come back strong. They're at home, and I think defense shows up this week.
Rams at Colts. What's not to like about Matthew Stafford and the Rams receivers? What a debut for him, huh? Nothing to like on the Colts here, with a possible exception of Jonathan Taylor.
And Naheem Hines.
That's true.
But I think
a big contract too.
Well, and he's so versatile, both run and pass. But like you, I think Matthew Stafford really showed the NFL what his players and the coaching staff with the Rams have seen since he got there, and that this guy is dominant. You could see the smile on Sean McVay's face really all game, thinking, wow, what is this Ferrari we just opened up? And I think it makes everybody on that offense even that much stronger. Defensively, they're as good as they were last year, it seems. And so the Rams may have just leapfrogged themselves right into the top basket as the contenders in the Super Bowl.
And that's the one thing they wanted to do this year, with SoFi being Super Bowl haven this year. So got Houston and Cleveland. I look for the Browns to bounce back with everything they got. I have no reason not to play anyone on the Browns, even Beckham. I mean, he's just not the same old Beckham, that's for sure. And they've got other options, but I kind of like him this week. And it's just the opposite on Houston with the nod to Brandon Cooks.
Well, I think one of the best stories last week and probably overlooked was Tyrod Taylor. Here's a guy that was going to be the Chargers quarterback last year until, one of the doctors, administered a needle into his lungs by mistake. And so now he lands back with the Texans, who nobody thought was going to win a game. And now he comes out and plays great. Their offense looks good. And I think against Cleveland, it's a different type of defense. This is a legit top, 4 or 5 defense that I wouldn't say that Houston's going to dominate this week. And like you, I think the Cleveland Browns will come back because they played great last week.
Mm-hmm.
They were one drive away. Baker Mayfield had one shot to win it and didn't get the team to go down and did not look as consistent as he did, early in the game. And so now they're at home this week. Everybody's got high expectations for Cleveland, including themselves. And so I think they'll bounce back. And like you said, Beckham is, again, he's a guy that everybody overlooks. And, what a great year Landry had last year. Well, Beckham's, he's just as good, if not better, and still the same guy. Sure, he's coming off the knee injury, but I think he's rehabbed himself back. And they got tons of weapons. Like you said, Nick Chubb, who had 2 touchdowns last week, they're going to be in the red zone a bunch. So whether it's him or Kareem Hunt, offensively, I think Cleveland is going to answer the bell this week and come back and play tough against Houston, and they're at home.
New Orleans and Carolina in the South. I did not see Jameis Winston doing what he did. He's got to be a strong QB1 this week, along with all of his main receivers because of that. Kamara, of course, is a lock always. Sleepers on Carolina. I like Therese Marshall, the rookie wideout, at least as a flex, maybe not as a starting wideout, but at least as a flex, and to go along with McCaffrey and DJ Moore. I'm still not sold on Sam Darnold. I gotta have another week. You gotta give me another week on Sam Darnold.
I agree with you, and I don't think anybody looks at Sam Darnold right now as an every week starter. And yes, he hooked up with a big play to his former teammate with the Jets, Robbie Anderson, and they do have weapons. But I think, like you, if it was me and I had Sam Darnold, I'd have Sam Darnold as my backup. That doesn't mean I wouldn't start their other skilled players, and obviously McCaffrey might be the number 1 legit fantasy type player. Or not fantasy type, but fantasy player in the NFL because he's so effective everywhere on the field. Mm-hmm. Running back, in between tackles, outside runs, passing game, doesn't matter. They're going to feature him. And like you said with the Saints, Jameis Winston throwing for what he throw, like 47 yards and 5 touchdowns. I know it was over 100, but they don't need him to just wing it all over the yard. And I think that's the beauty of it. He gives them the downfield throw, accurate throw that they haven't had there in several years. Even as great as Drew Brees was, and as great as he was even up to the end, they did not have that part of the game. And I think that's what Jameis showed not only last year at times when he got the chance to play, but throughout the preseason. He looks to me like the fluid type of quarterback I've never seen him be. And that's where he can look downfield and kind of with his feet and eyes scan down from top to bottom and be accurate with whether it's the first, second, or third, or fourth guy, or whether he runs the ball. So I like what Jameis Winston has taken off from so far this year.
Well, the thing about it is there's that word, that phrase, doing it with authority. And he looked like that guy who just took charge last week and just saw, boom, he did it with authority, Yeah,
and he didn't look hesitant, like you said. He looked smooth, and he wasn't forcing the ball anywhere.
Got Atlanta at Tampa Bay. I see another shootout, so anyone on either offense is a good play. And because of that, I would stay away from the defenses, as good as Tampa Bay is.
True enough. Now, like I said, I thought Kyle Pitts, probably like everybody, would just be a matchup nightmare. And I think he will over time. But for whatever reason, he did not go off like I thought he would. And against Tampa, I'm not so sure he will either. I think up front, Tampa Bay is so dominant that it's going to be tough for Atlanta, who did not really establish a running game the week before, Now to come in against Tampa Bay, I don't think they're going to have that either. And probably like the rest of anybody who's following the NFL, everybody on Tampa is probably a start this week.
Yeah. Minnesota Vikings at Arizona. Cousins and Murray, what a show this could be. Again, I like the odds on anybody on either team in offense, and I don't like the defenses because of that.
Well, I think I learned something last week, and that's that Chandler Jones and that Arizona defense are legit. Not that he ever wasn't, but I think that what they showed at probably the entire NFL and anyone watching was this is legitimate defense too. And you put what they've always been as long as Cliff Kingsbury and Kyle Murray have been there is a dynamic offense. Mm-hmm. And now you put a dynamic defense with that. And here's a team. And last week with the Cardinals, nobody figured they'd be walking into Tennessee and dominating what everybody considers a possible contender in the AFC for the Super Bowl. So here they go now matched up against the Vikings, and they're now back at home. I think Minnesota is going to be struggling with this one. Kirk Cousins, I'm not so sure if I had a different guy, if I had, I'm trying to think of someone now who might be equivalent. Well, if I had like a Tom Brady, I think I'd start Brady against the Falcons defense rather than Kirk Cousins against the Cardinals defense.
Chiefs at Ravens, we got a shootout again. I like everyone here. I'd say if you have anybody on either of these teams, you should start them. Jackson looks solid. So does the running back with Latavius Murray. Chiefs, well, what can you say? They're the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I think watching that game last night, the one thing that jumped out, because the Raiders were so good defensively, and they were so good defensively specifically against Alejandro Villanueva, the offensive tackle they picked up from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that's going to make Lamar Jackson, as comfortable as he now looks in the pocket, he's not often in a pocket. He's in a collapsing pocket. Right. So great that he's Lamar Jackson and can make things happen and escape. And there's so many of those plays that he made last night that are probably going to lead to him being in the Hall of Fame one day, because every other quarterback in the league would have been sacked.
Yeah.
And so, but over time, I'm not so sure that's the recipe for the Ravens' long-term and consistent success. And so I'm a little nervous because take the Kansas City Chiefs, they're solid up front, if not more than the Raiders are. And so you're right. With the Chiefs, though, I don't know that there's a defense out there that I wouldn't start every Kansas City Chiefs player, including Mahomes.
Tennessee Titans at Seattle Seahawks, another offensive show. I like Wilson here, but I love Lockett. And just for grins, we'll throw in DK Metcalf. Now, Chris Carson is an RB1 this week as well. Of course, Derrick Henry on the Titans, along with Julio Jones. Now that he's got a week one under his belt, maybe he's back to maybe not being the great player he was in Atlanta, but maybe he is. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I don't think anybody's sure right now about the Titans. I was going into this game, and I think a lot of people also were. But offensively, for whatever reason, when you make Tyler Lewan look bad, as Chandler Jones did, that's something. And so I'm not sure I'd start anybody on Tennessee this week, especially because the Seahawks are pretty good defensively too. But like you said, you pointed out Tyler Lockett. I mean, who doesn't love him right now? He doesn't on paper look like the world's greatest going to be receiver. But heck, man, in this offense and with Russell Wilson throwing him the ball, that guy is consistent every week. DK Metcalf, 1 week, yes, 1 week, no. But Tyler Lockett, to me, is the guy in Seattle. And like you said, Chris Carson, and you got Russell Wilson. Whoever he's playing against right now, I'd start him.
Well, like we talked last year, you got to get DK Metcalf the ball, because you got to target him more. But when you got a guy on the other side like Lockett, it's kind of hard to spread that around. It's trying, and he had a couple of games last year that played against the Rams, and Jalen Ramsey shut down Metcalf, but he shuts down everybody. But I've been a big Metcalf fan, as you know, from the beginning. And the thing is,
a lot of people have.
Yeah, you got to get him the ball. Dallas at the Chargers. So Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert. What an aerial display this should be. I might consider benching Zeke Elliott here, just no action for him at all. And the air will be filled with footballs, which means he'll be held into block. Cooper and Lamb, they're on a roll. Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler are locks to be in your lineup, I think, this week. I also love Mike Williams and Jared Cook. This should be one of those games that if you've got guys, you're going to play him. But again, I'm not sold on Elliott this week, and he's my guy.
How that he's your guy, and right, because I mean he's the guy that really everyone's thinking, hey, he's now in the best shape of his life. Mm-hmm. You've got the offense, what seems to be back with Dak Prescott. I'm just amazed that Prescott was able to do what he did behind their offensive line, who's really not that good. No. And they were missing Zach Martin, their best offensive lineman, supposedly. So I think that I was really impressed with Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, not only offensively, but defensively too. And I too, though, like Justin Herbert. I mean, with the game on the line, I think they were backed up on about the 8 or 10 yard line with about 6 minutes to go in the game against Washington on the road. And he hit 4 huge third down throws that made first downs on a drive where they were able to keep the ball the entire time, never let Washington back on the field again, and take a knee to win the game. And that's why I think Justin Herbert has really picked up from where he left off last year, because as great as he was last year, he looks as good or better this year. And he's throwing darts all over the field, which again, and another guy who stepped up and made some huge plays was Austin Eckler. And so I love what I'm seeing so far out of the Chargers offense.
Well, I think this year the Chargers are playing 60 minutes instead of 58. That's the big thing.
As proof by that last drive in the game last week against Washington.
Exactly. Monday night, Detroit at the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers will bounce back, and Jared Goff will revert to being Jared Goff for the Rams. I would ride Swift and Aaron Jones this week, and of course Adams as well.
Isn't it funny how we're talking about the Monday night game with the Packers and the Lions, where everybody in America would have thought this is a gimme 2 touchdown at least win for the Packers going in, right? Now, who knows? And I think of the 2 teams, it's at Green Bay. Green Bay plays great on Monday night. I can't remember the last time Detroit was even on Monday night. And
when you were playing.
Right? And then
Barry was there, right?
And he was the draw for sure. And that, but I think Green Bay has so much talent, including Aaron Rodgers, that I don't think they're going to show up and end the game the same way they did last week against the New Orleans Saints. And so I think if Detroit, they're not there yet, obviously not there yet. And but I think this is going to be a good test for them to see how they bounce back, because they got down so far and had something of a comeback only to fall short. And I think, like I've been saying all throughout the preseason, I think Dan Campbell and this coaching staff and this organization, they're taking the long-range view on the Lions. They want, over the course of this season, this 17-game season now, they want to see improvement in the attitude and the way they play. They want to be finishing off runs. They want to be making tackles that shouldn't be a 2-yard loss that end up into being an 8-yard gain for a first down. That's the kind of I think the change in the way you finish one play and then finish the next play and so on. That's the Lions, I think, at this point in the season. Whereas Green Bay, they're like, oh my God, we're thought of as a Super Bowl team, and we look like that the first week. And so they're the ones I think that are going to have the biggest hill to climb, and I think they will, though.
All right. There you have it. Kramer and Brill, Fantasy Football Podcast, and now a video cast as well. You can hear the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Libsyn, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcasts. And now you can also see the video cast on YouTube by going to my Bob Brill YouTube channel or finding the links for all of this at kramerandbrill.com. That's the easiest way to do it. For our guest, Brian Salmon, my friend and colleague, Erik Kramer, I'm Bob Brill, and we'll see you next time.